Welcome to the RealTea. I'm your host, Tammy Murphy, broker owner of RH2L, bringing Miami Valley real homes to love.
And I'm Ellie Sollenberger to give my perspective as a home buyer.
We're going to give you the key to Miami Valley real estate. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tammy Murphy, broker owner of RH2L, a real estate professional since 2001, and I have with me...
Hi, I'm Ellie Sollenberger. I recently bought a house with Tammy, and I just wanted to bring my perspective from the client and let you know all about my experience and how I felt going through the home buying process recently.
So we hope that you enjoy our podcast. This is going to be a fun adventure, maybe a little bit of trials and tribulations as we work our way through the process, but it is an idea to be able to share from a professional why things are the way they are and from the consumer aspect so that we can see how the two should really work together throughout that home buying, selling process. And again, we're going to open this up at some point for questions down the road. So if you have questions and we don't touch on those topics, that's something that we would like to also be able to do is to answer those questions. But for now, we're just going to get started with how we met, because I think that's pretty...
Right, it's such a crazy story.
Like, it's going to date us for how old we really are, but back in the day...
Yeah, right?
I was actually holding, if I remember, I was holding an open house at a client's property in Oakwood that was trying to rent it during that time. And I think you came through with your family, and that was, as it were, the start of our beginning, right?
Right, yeah. We were just going to be renters, and we did the application, we got approved, and then that Friday you called and said, they want to stay.
What a great start.
Right. So then you said, have you ever thought about buying? And I said, no. And then that's kind of what started looking at for our first home in Oakwood.
Yeah. And so through that course, obviously, when you are looking at a property and you're thinking about renting, there's different needs that you have. I mean, from a consumer aspect, right? Because it's not really like a forever home. It's just kind of like maybe this temporary. And back then, we won't tell you how many years ago, back then it was that there was a lot of options. You had properties that you could find, and the rent rates were what we'll call reasonable. I mean, fast forward, we look at low inventory, not only in the housing supply for sale, but especially for rentals that are available. But now the cost of rent rates has appreciated to the point where you're really paying the mortgage of what used to be a house payment. So that's a different dynamic altogether. So renters in this day are looking at a different scenario than when we started this. But at that time, I think my question is if you were looking to rent, was that just because you didn't think you could buy, or you really just didn't know where you wanted to be? So talk to that.
Right. At the time, my husband had two kids who were in the Dayton public schools, and they weren't getting the help that they needed. They were behind. We knew that we needed to get them into a better school district. We chose Oakwood. We didn't really know where in Oakwood we wanted to be, so we thought that renting would be better option.
Right, because you kind of get your feet wet, learn about the community.
Right.
Yeah.
And Oakwood is so different. It's kind of a beast of its own in the Dayton area. So there's different sections of Oakwood that have totally different character. And so we really didn't know where we wanted to be, which school, because at the time they were in elementary school, which is split throughout the city, depending upon which one you go to. So then we decided that renting wasn't an option, kind of by force. And then we decided to let's go ahead and look at buying.
Right, right.
And that is when we found our home in Oakwood.
Yes. And then life kind of evolves from that point. But what did you find as far as the community aspect of Oakwood? We'll talk to some of those benefits as we go along with different communities, because that's one of the things that I like to do is to spotlight what each of the communities bring. And you can tell from a consumer perspective, obviously, what you enjoyed and really found to be advantageous to being in Oakwood.
So the main thing for Oakwood was just the close-knit community. It's kind of a small town within a big city. Everybody knows everybody. There's that support system. You know that when your kid is learning to drive, that they're only going to have to drive a mile up the road and to get to almost anything.
Right.
So there was that. There was that it was close to everything. I worked downtown at the time, so it was only a 10-minute commute downtown. There is, my husband's favorite store is Dorothy Lane Market. So he was 3 minutes from Dorothy Lane.
Well, that's important.
Right.
And I think that you've got that, speaking of shopping, you've got that golden triangle that's right there in Oakwood where you can eat, shop, and relax, enjoy. You've got everything that's right there within this little nucleus of a community, as you said, and it is pretty close-knit. I mean, it's a 2-mile radius, if I'm correct, on the city of Oakwood. And if you aren't familiar with that community, you know, it's certainly something to stop by, take a look, and see if you're shopping, having a coffee at Starbucks, or grabbing an ice cream at Grader's. Those are some of the things that you can do. But they have a library that's there that a lot of people utilize as well. Great walking community because they have the medians down most of their roads that give tree-lined aspects, which is very cool, especially if you go through the holidays. They always decorate and do things like that. So those are the things that just make it feel a little touch of home even when you're in the community of it. So
Right.
awesome. And so you guys lived there for a while, a number of years. Kids got through elementary, middle school, high school.
Yep.
Yeah, fast forward.
Fast forward to last spring, we decided that we wanted a larger home and we wanted to start looking outside of Oakwood.
Yeah, so that was like when our real adventure began.
Right.
Because when we worked originally, it was a totally different market, kind of low key, easy going. You know, I'd tell you, go ahead and make a list of 10 properties, we'll take a look. And now it's, no, when you see a listing or you drive by something and you want to know about it, you've got to text me right then. Like, we got to jump and we will be off and running and doing everything we have to do.
Exactly. It was crazy how this is, post 2020, post COVID, totally different ball game. And I would find a property that went for sale, say at noon. I would text you, you would set it for 4 o'clock, and you would text me at 3 o'clock that afternoon and say it's already sold. It's already under contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Or we'd get the heartbreaking news that once we were there that they already had 15 offers.
Correct.
And deciding if we wanted to be in a bidding war for a property. And, you know, it just really created this sense of urgency that we didn't have time to wait. We were specific about what we were looking for and didn't feel like that was certainly not what the majority of people are looking for, right? Because we were looking for a larger home. We were looking for some amenities. I mean, we wanted a swimming pool. You know, there's some things that we wanted on this list that
Right.
you would think not everybody's out there looking for. And certainly not the day it goes listed that it's going to be gone. We don't even get a chance.
Yep. Totally just went blank.
Sorry, I don't want to cause any trauma and make you go back through some of these instances or anything, but
Right. And then we moved forward to where we would find a house and we would put in an offer, which was $100,000 above asking, and we still wouldn't get it.
yeah, and that was what was crazy. I mean, you know, we've heard about escalation clauses. We've heard about buyers waiving their rights to do inspections. We've heard about appraisal gaps. And so we really had to have a lot of conversations when we started this to say, what is it that you're willing to do? You know, I have to advocate for you as my client to make sure that the process is what you want, expect, and need, to make sure that you're getting that peace of mind throughout the process. So are there times when somebody will buy a house sight unseen? Sure. Do I think that's the right thing for everybody to do? Absolutely not. If you're an investor, you know your dynamics, you've got a person on the ground, you've got all of these things into place, I can see where that would happen. But a typical home buyer wants to be able to get into the property, take a look, because what did we learn? Pictures can either make or break the whole process, because the pictures are either a good step forward that it brings you in and wants you to see more, or it's so bad that we just write it off and don't even look at it. And to that point, I said, we don't want to make a final determination just off of the pictures, because somebody may not be doing the job the right way, and they may cut corners and use their cell phone in order to take those pictures. Does that give the best representation? And when we walk in, do we see, wait a minute, this isn't as bad as I thought, there is more room here, right? But then there's the other side of it where somebody really blows it out and they use all the wide angle lenses and special lighting and all of that, and the house looks fantastic, and we get in there like, what happened?
Right.
Is this the same house? So it does work both ways, which is why I'm an advocate for making sure you're going in and seeing the house, because that's the real way to understand that what you see is what you're going to be getting. And then to that point, the inspection process. And why that's so important is because we only see on the surface, right? We see what's there and available, but the inspector is supposed to be that third-party neutral person that comes in and says, here's where there's some issues, or here's where there could be a problem, or hey, you just want to know about this so that you can prepare for it down the road. So
I think let me back you up a little bit. This is also a good time to point out where you need to find a realtor that you trust and you have a relationship with.
Right.
There were multiple times where we were out of town, and because of the short time constraints that we were on, something would get posted and I would send you over there and we would FaceTime while we were watching.
True.
From Florida. You also need to trust your realtor's instinct where, hey, this is a turd with paint. Or, hey, I think there's, some really good structure here and potential. And then if we had gone by pictures only, the very first house that we absolutely loved, we never would have seen. We never would have put an offer in.
Right. And I think that's a valuable point. I mean, this is why we create the relationships, is one, so that I can be in tune with what you like, what your wants and needs are, so that if I happen to be in a house, even showing another client who may not be interested in it, it's not a good fit for them, but I, in my head, am going through, wait a minute, this would work for Mike and Ellie. Oh, let me call them. So it's always a reason why I do what I do, is to connect and understand, but to also know that I'm seeing lots of other properties and lots of other communities, other opportunities to bring into the mix that maybe a buyer doesn't know where they want to live, what community is right for them. And so they need that insight. So yes, touring houses for the clients when they're out of town, even though I wanted to be out of town with you, is certainly an option. And it does help because there, again, not everybody's able to get off from work. So if you're stuck in a 9-to-5 job and houses are being listed at 9 in the morning or 10 or noon, whatever, the houses get listed all throughout the day. If you have to wait until you get off of work and then everybody else is doing the same, then you've got a backlog. I mean, we had that as well, where we went into a house and we're tripping over other people who are also touring at the same time.
And that's kind of uncomfortable for the buyer when you walk in with another couple that's looking for the home and you go upstairs, we'll go downstairs.
Yeah. Because it not only creates more of that urgency, but it makes you feel like you're pitted in competition. We know it's a competition anyway, right? The better offer is going to win. Hopefully, ultimately, that's what happens. But it's easier to understand and deal with that when you don't have a face going with it. When you start seeing who the competition is, or in my case, I ran into a friend of mine, a fellow realtor, right? My girlfriend was showing her clients one of the houses that we were interested in. And at that point, it's like game on, because I know how she works, she knows how I work, and it's like we both figured, this is going to be tough, because if we got to compete against each other, we know a little bit about each other, right?
Right.
So that makes it interesting to see. What do you do? What do you do when you walk in and there are other people looking at the house? I mean, you already feel like maybe you don't want to talk because maybe the sellers are listening. But now you have other people, and it's like you giving me that feedback when we're in a property, showing and looking at it, is so beneficial to letting me understand what you like and don't like. But now we've got this inhibitor where we can't do that because we don't want to give any tail to the other people, right? So then it's like, okay, well, we'll talk about this when we get outside.
Right. And it's also back to, creating that relationship with your realtor. You also want somebody who is connected in the business. It doesn't mean that they've been in the business for 50 years, but they know, hey, I think there's a water leak right here. Who can we call to check it out? I know that we're going to have to replace boards on the deck. Who can we call?
Right.
Hey, we need to do something with this garage. Who can we call? Or we need a painter. Or, there's multiple other contractors that can be involved in this home buying process before you even get into contract or close on a house.
Right. And obviously that is one of the things about being that connection for the communities. It's the connection for the businesses, the connection for, the process itself. But that's why it's important for me to always know what's going on in each of our communities as well, because sometimes it may even be a zoning requirement or new construction, a development that's going to move into the area. We found that's something that really needs to be on our forefront of mind to know about, because it could impact somebody who would be choosing that particular house.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad I'm your realtor of choice.
Right. I wouldn't have anybody else.
And worked for it hard over the years, so it's a good thing.
I mean, it really is a testament that you never know who could be your client or your potential client. We met as potential renters, and then as of last fall, I have bought and sold $1.6 million worth of houses with you.
Wow. I mean, that's phenomenal, and I know there will be another talking point where we get to, the value of a realtor, and because there's a lot of conversation that's taking place right now about the commission and lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. So different topic, a different episode.
Right.
But knowing that you feel that is what I really work towards, is making sure that my clients feel that they've been represented, that they've been heard, that they have found that home that is theirs, because there's lots of houses. But it only becomes a home when you move in, when you make it your own, when it represents what it is that you need. And I get so much enjoyment. It feeds my passion for real estate to be able to make those connections for people, for their families, for their lives. And I guess that's part of the reward for me. And then getting to do fun and exciting things with people down the road as life journey continues, right?
Yeah. You never know what something will turn into.
Absolutely.
So, Tammy, I think that we should give our listeners a tip on Miami Valley real estate for every one of our podcasts. So what do you have for me today?
So today's tip, I would say, be prepared, be patient, and be trusting to the process.
3 Bs. I like it.
Thanks for joining us today on the RealTea podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. Every other week, we will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.